From MTN News, this is Face the State.
Welcome and thank you for joining us. I'm Augusta McDonald.
And I'm Jackie Coffin. After 87 days, the 68th legislative session is over, but not without some controversy.
Sine die came Tuesday, starting with the Senate adjourning rather suddenly and the House following soon after.
And with the wrap up of the session, we turn to MTN senior political correspondent Jonathan Ambarian.
In less than 24 hours, Montana lawmakers went from finalizing key bills to packing up and heading back to their homes across the state. It was a busy session with nearly 1,700 pieces of legislation introduced. More than 700 of those passed through the legislature. The Senate adjourned Tuesday afternoon after a surprising sine die motion, and the House wrapped up its work later that evening after finalizing the $14 billion Maine budget bill. Republicans held a two-thirds supermajority in both the House and Senate, and GOP leaders said they were proud of what they accomplished during the session. House Republicans touted a package of significant tax rebates and long-term tax reductions, school choice measures including bills encouraging development of charter schools, and bills on social issues that they said were focused on protecting Montana children.
We appreciate the people from this great state of Montana for sending us here and putting your trust in us, the Republican supermajority. We came into this session unified behind a set of policy principles which I'm proud to say that we have accomplished.
Senate Republican leaders highlighted the money returned to Montana taxpayers, as well as the investments made in things like behavioral health services. And they talked about policy changes and funding intended to encourage housing development.
And I think all of those things, and they are not little subjects, they are huge subjects. We had not just baby steps, but giant leaps and bounds.
Democratic leaders said it was a tough session serving in a super minority. They said they were proud of things like increases in Medicaid reimbursement rates and stopping proposed constitutional amendments. But they believe the legislature didn't do enough to help people struggling to afford housing, and that much of the session was spent pushing back on what they call Republican overreach.
When I think about what we accomplished with just 32 members, I'm incredibly proud. And when I think of what we were able to defend against on the floor every day, the attacks against families and children, I'm incredibly proud of the work we did. Now, of course, we weren't able to defend against all of it.
Lawmakers will be back up here at the state capitol starting this summer for interim committee meetings. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
On Wednesday, Governor Greg Gianforte signed several abortion-restricting bills. The new laws include banning abortion when a fetus is determined viable, requiring the state to track complications due to medical abortions, and allowing medical providers to not participate in procedures they object to. Another says it would require providers to give life-saving care to infants born alive after an abortion. A similar measure was voted down by Montanans in 2022 through a ballot initiative. Governor Gianforte says one of the most important bills challenges a state Supreme Court ruling saying abortion is not protected under the Montana Constitution's right to privacy.
Last session, we passed common sense pro-life bills, and some have been tied up in the courts. But our commitment to do what's right for unborn babies, however, will never waver. And we have proven our commitment in defending life again this session.
It's likely these bills will face challenges in court.
And right before the legislature, a Helena judge ruled a Missoula lawmaker barred from the House floor would not be allowed to return. Representative Zoe Zephyr, the legislature's only openly trans lawmaker, has been making national headlines after comments she made on the House floor about gender-affirming care for minors ended with a censure from Republican House leadership. Zephyr, who was later prohibited from entering the House floor or attending her committee assignments in person, filed a lawsuit Monday asking to be immediately allowed to return. On Tuesday, the judge ruled against her request.
And what happens now after sine die? Governor Greg Gianforte will have 10 days to sign bills into law, veto them, or leave them without his signature.
We'll also be tracking legal challenges to any new laws if they arise, but we want to take the temperature now for how this session went.
Augusta and I sat down to talk about the ins and outs of the legislative session.
Well, it was kind of a mixed picture. I mean, on the one hand, a lot of the initiatives that the governor sought and a lot of the initiatives that the Republican majority wanted, they went through. But I would say that on a lot of things that the concern of achieving a supermajority, right? The supermajority moved the needle on things that had thus far been not as front of mind, mainly like constitutional amendments, or like, really kind of structuring debate in such a way that it would, you would sort of ram through a lot of legislation. A lot of those concerns that the supermajority that raised, they didn't really come to fruition. Like we saw a lot of things that got a lot of talk, achieved very little. I think even the end of the session itself kind of spoke to the fact that yes, there is a supermajority of Republicans in the legislature, but that does not mean that they agree on everything. And it does not mean that the supermajority in the House and the supermajority in the Senate think the same way. And so what we see is that the Republican Party, while having a lot of core tenets that they all believe in, have a fair amount of like spectrum issues where they're like, they don't all feel this way. They're kind of in a range. And so when that range was pretty tight, they were able to get a lot of stuff done. When they hit some other issues, when they tried to tackle constitutional questions, that range seemed to be too broad to get the things done that a lot of people thought they might. Although I'll be honest, like, I remember at the beginning of the session, Chuck Johnson, who was like the dean of political journalists, said, you need to go and look at how many constitutional amendments they've always said they're going to introduce and have introduced, and how many actually made it onto the ballot, and how many were passed by voters. And he was like, although there were a ton in this session, there were a lot over the last few years, and very few of them make it. So, I think what it does say is, yes, the supermajority gives Republicans clear advantages structurally in the legislature, but it also doesn't eliminate the challenge of achieving some of these really, politically difficult sort of majorities to pass the kind of sweeping changes that some Republicans want, but not all Republicans. And that's where we saw a lot of the things that we thought might happen not happen, because they couldn't rally all the Republicans to agree to do a thing.
How do you think the Democrats did working within that dynamic and trying to get their initiatives and their priorities accomplished, and effectively represent all of the people who had elected them in a dynamic where those voices could almost be sort of minimized because just for a lack of votes?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. At the end of the day, the Democrats' biggest probably electoral success, this might sound mean, was ending the session. That they were able to negotiate, or they were able to attract 10 Republicans to side with them to end the Montana Senate, which basically set in motion the end of the Montana House. And so, like, the reason the session ended so abruptly was primarily, I think, driven by some kind of efforts by Democrats to develop a group that would sort of say, let's stick a fork in this session and move on to next one. And so, which I don't think is an insignificant achievement in a lot of ways. But I think it also, they were able to rally support around a lot of the stuff that gets passed by the legislature isn't the controversial stuff that gets a lot of attention. It's a lot of like kind of workaday bills that are like implementing fairly, important, but not like ground shaking policies. And so a lot of this stuff passes like 100-0. And those things, Democrats had their voice, they participated in the process, and they voted along with them. When it became a Democrat-Republican divide, they definitely made their voices heard. Even around the example of actually a legislator having the voice taken away by being sort of silenced on the floor. We heard a lot about it, and it wasn't a quiet sort of scenario. So I think that they were pretty effective at getting their message out, but I wouldn't say they, dramatically changed the policy dynamic of what the legislature was going to do. A lot of the action, the majority of the action, was on the Republican side of the aisle this session.
And like you said, the session did come to a pretty abrupt end. It was sort of running out of time anyway, but I don't think we were expecting a sine die Tuesday. I think we were expecting it maybe Friday, like with, a few more days to work out some of the amendments that the Senate set back on the budget bill. So I guess I'm kind of curious, what do you think remains to be kind of sorted out and hashed out, and what does there's some really large amounts of money kind of moved around quickly. I guess what does this mean moving forward when we're trying to understand exactly what where this funding is going?
Well, I mean, Montana is fairly unique in its structure in the fact that the legislature meets, for 3 months every 2 years, and the abrupt end of this legislative term means that the handing off of power happened more, I think, quickly than I think some people thought, and perhaps leaves open some more policy and implementation questions that, frankly, are going to be filled by the folks who are still in Helena. Which is the executive branch. So the executive branch now takes a fair amount of money, like you pointed out. I mean, there were some big outlays of money that moved through the legislature at the very end. And if the policy and literally the forms and the deadlines and all these things that have to be done to make a tax credit turn into money in a bank, how do you implement the policies that the person fills out to get the form to do the thing? That all lives over at the executive branch. And so what happens now is all of these sort of dramatic debates and the debates that the legislature had kind of go away. And what instead comes in its place is a fairly bureaucratic process of turning those legislative priorities into agency rules and forms and all that good stuff, so that we can actually apply for, or this money can be allocated to do what the legislature said it wanted to do. But really the keys of the castle have been transferred from the legislature, who sort of outlined the goals and the priorities, to the executive branch, who's going to really decide how it happens and what it looks like.
All right. Again, Director of the University of Montana School of Journalism, Banville, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Follow MTN's coverage of the 68th session online anytime at your local MTN website. Welcome back to Face the State.
Welcome back to Face the State. Right now, I'm sitting down with Rose Bender, the Director of Research for the Montana Budget and Policy Center. So, Rose, thank you so much for joining us on Face the State. We're talking about the end of the session and kind of a recap or a look back and some analysis on the session, how it went, some big talking points, and what the Montana Budget and Policy Center saw and is beginning to think of as a reflection of the session.
Great. Yeah. Thanks for having us. Thanks for having me on. Happy to talk about it. I guess for the things we're following, I guess first I'll just start with tax cuts. The legislature gave away over $1 billion in tax cuts this biennium. So that's where a lot of that surplus went. Unfortunately, majority of those tax cuts benefit primarily wealthy people and then one-time rebates. So a model of the governor's package of tax cut bills shows that the top 1% of Montanans, or the wealthiest 1%, will get over $9,000 in annual tax cuts from those bills. With those with incomes up to around the median, $46,000, will see just a few $100s on average. So a couple tanks of gas, depending on what kind of car you drive. Most of which is one time only. So that's kind of the tax piece of it. We did see some investments too that we were happy to see move through the session. The couple of big ones would be provider rates. So provider rates determine the reimbursement rate for Medicaid providers. An adequate reimbursement rate is important to ensure that care is available to those who need it. This too low of reimbursement rates we've seen result in workforce challenges. People can't pay for housing and childcare, et cetera, and also pay these low-wage jobs. So increasing those provider rates is important, especially in times like these when unemployment is so low. So before the legislature convened, the state conducted a provider rate study. They got an independent entity to do a study of what adequate provider rates would be in the state. And then much of the legislature was spent with advocates for fully funding those provider rate increases just pushing to get them funded. And that happened in a series of pieces. We did not get them fully funded, but the legislature did make a significant investment in provider rates, and we are really happy to see that. Today, we only have a $9 million gap between what has been funded and the study's recommendations. So that's going to do a lot for this area. And yeah, we're happy to see that. And then another piece that we have been working on and are very happy to see is childcare. So as we all know, families across the state are struggling with childcare. That is another piece of our workforce challenges that we're seeing right now. Inadequate childcare impacts business productivity, and families lose millions in wages. So the Montana legislature, after a long battle, has passed House Bill 648 with much bipartisan support. This is a bill which increases the eligibility for our Best Beginnings Childcare Scholarship Program. This is a program that helps families with low wages afford childcare so they can work. And it also fixes our copay structure and caps copays at 9% of income. This investment in childcare will help many Montanans get back to work and also just increase work to full time. And we're asking the governor to sign House Bill 648 to help Montana families and our workforce. And then I can cover one other item right now if you want.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Keep going. Yeah. I love it.
The last thing I was going to talk about is housing. This was another big topic throughout the legislature. And things were moved around until the last possible second on housing. But as it stands now, there's going to be about $100 million for local government infrastructure, water and sewer projects tied to housing development. This language requires some density and requires the governor's economic development office to establish a policy to require long-term affordability. It's going to be important for stakeholders interested in affordable housing to keep close eye on this and to see where that state investment is going, if it is really reaching families that cannot find and afford housing, and just advocate for using that money in the best way possible. As we know, housing is such a big concern for many Montana families right now, and that's a big pot of money. And if it's used right, it could make some good change. And then there was also an additional $50 million put into the Coal Trust Fund. And there was some language that creates some uncertainty about just exactly how that will work for low-income housing projects. But again, something to keep a close eye on. So over the interim, I guess advocates, including us, are just going to be looking at how this money is being used, what types of projects are being funded, are we really moving the needle on expanding housing affordability for workers with low wages? And if not, we'll need to take action again in 2025 to fix that.
All right. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add, Rose? I mean, you really laid it out in a way that I think is easy to understand and follow and look at some big issues that our Montanans went into elections thinking about, housing, childcare, all of that. So, but is there anything else you'd like to say about the session and your overall take on it now that it's over and a few days in the rearview mirror, at least?
I guess I'm happy to say, honestly, I'm happy it's over. Yeah, I look forward to looking at these policies moving forward, hoping to get that money to the best use.
We'll be right back with more Face the State.
Follow MTN's coverage of the 68th session online anytime at your local MTN website. Welcome back to Face the State.
And with the session now over, some Montanans are breathing a sigh of relief over bills that failed.
MTN's Alina Howder takes us to a kava bar in Billings where their livelihood was almost turned into a Schedule I drug.
If you've driven down 32nd Street West over the last year, you've probably noticed the old Pickle Barrel restaurant is no more. Instead, this building is now home to one of Billings' first kava bars, which got us wondering, what is kava? Well, we went inside to find out.
Yeah. These guys may be celebrating with shots, but it's not alcohol in their cups. It's kava.
Kava is a plant from Fiji, Tonga, Hawaii, any of the South Pacific Islands. It's a ceremonial drink over there.
Shane Victor is the owner of the Kava House. While Pacific Islanders have been using kava for thousands of years, it started to gain popularity in the U.S. a couple of decades ago.
What it does is the kava lactones in kava will lower your anxiety levels and give you that social, bubbly, talkative feeling that alcohol would give you, but none of the drunken impairedness.
There is a stigma when it comes to the plant.
The heat activates the kava lactones.
Kava was banned in Europe in the early 2000s out of concern it could cause liver problems.
It seems that decision was made a little hastily.
Steve Carlton is the chief clinical officer of Gallus Detox Centers in Denver. He says just like any mind-altering substances, kava can be addictive.
Used in moderation, similar to alcohol, similar to marijuana, it can be safe if done responsibly.
But kava isn't the only controversial product being served up here.
What's in the white tea?
Just Kratom.
DeKava House also uses Kratom in its Thunder tea.
Kratom is actually a cousin of the coffee plant, but it doesn't deal with caffeine, it deals with alkaloids.
Kratom, which caught the attention of the Montana legislature this year, is used by some to help with everything from pain to anxiety.
I have some old knee injuries from sports, and I was taking ibuprofen every single day and one tea, and I feel great.
And the Kratom served here is very different from the product often in the public spotlight. Kratom sold in smoke shops is often chemically altered, making it dangerous.
When produced in these labs, they engineer it in a way that makes Kratom unnatural.
All of our Kratom actually comes right from an Indonesian farmer, gets tested there, but then also gets tested here in the States.
It's a new business serving up a new type of brew, and one these Montanans hope is here to stay.
If somebody's going to go to a kava bar or a regular bar and drink 10 drinks, kava's probably a safe alternative to that.
In Billings, Alina Howder, MTN News.
Thank you, Alina. Face the State continues after this.
Follow MTN's coverage of the 68th session online anytime at your local MTN website. Welcome back to Face the State.
While the legislature is over, we're coming back next week to check in on what bills will get Governor Gianforte's signature and which ones might get a veto. So the governor has about 10 days following the legislative session to sign or veto a really tall stack of bills that have been sent to him at this point.
Yeah, and you say really tall, Augusta. Again, this session we saw a historic number of bills introduced and going through the legislature, with over 1,000 now headed to the governor's desk. So a lot for him to consider in a 10-day period of time. And there are a lot of different things at stake that we're going to continue looking at. Bills on housing, the environment, human rights, criminal justice reform, all sorts of across the gambit things the governor will have to consider.
That's right.
And thanks so much for joining us on Face the State. We'll see you next week.